Hello, everyone. This is Shiza Said from the LUMS Career Services Office. I'm joined here by my colleague Aisha Majid. And today we have guests from INSEAD over here. I hope I'm not butchering the name, but I'm sure you guys can correct it. This is part of our grad study launchpad series, and over to you guys.
Hi, very good afternoon, everyone. Um, I'm Danny. I'm actually from INSEAD's Asia campus. I'm from the recruitment and business development team, and I'm in charge of prospective applicants to our MBA as well as our Masters in Management program here at INSEAD. Um, Perhaps, Manahil, would you like to kind of introduce yourself real briefly?
Absolutely. Assalamualaikum, everyone. It's really nice to see all of you joined us today for this webinar. I'm Manahil, and I was part of the LUMS class of 2023. I was in SDSB and majored in management science. Before LUMS, I did my early schooling from LGS in Lahore, and then I moved to Saudi Arabia in Jeddah, where I did my O and A levels. During my time at LUMS, I did an exchange semester in Seoul, South Korea, and I did an internship in Jeddah in a Saudi multinational company. In August of 2024, I joined INSEAD's MIM program. So for the past 6 months, I was in the Europe campus in Fontainebleau, France. And just this week, I joined the Asia campus here in Singapore for the next part of our program.
Thanks, Manahil. So as Manahil shared, I think the INSEAD experience in terms of the master's program, it's truly global in nature, from the cold in France in Fontainebleau to the smuggy kind of weather here in Singapore. And we'll hear a little bit more from her later on. So here's a brief overview of the agenda. I'm just going to be giving everyone a quick overview and introduction to INSEAD. We are really a business school for the world. You'd find that within the INSEAD community, it is truly diverse, people coming from different backgrounds, academically, professionally, and also in terms of exposure to different cultures. As Manahil mentioned early on, she, even at a very young age, already has some global exposure. So hopefully by the end of this session, you get a better sensing of how the INSEAD Masters in Management or MIM program could possibly be a launch pad for the global career and aspirations that you may have. Now, this really is our mission statement. The institution INSEAD was actually founded in 1957, and we were founded post-World War to really kind of develop the European economy after depression. And so the first MBA was launched in 1959, with the Masters in Management launched in 2020, just 5 years ago. And our ethos, our DNA, the reason why we do what we do, our raison d'etre, if you would really be to kind of bring together people, culture, and ideas to develop responsible leaders who transform business and society. So we aim to kind of empower our student community, our graduates, who would then in turn look to kind of empowering their own community, their industry, and their businesses as well. So this is something that we really, really look out for, and we really hope to kind of develop in our students, whether it's the MBA or the Masters in Management, the MIM program. Since our inception, it's a pretty young history that we've had. We've actually achieved great heights. If you're familiar with the Financial Times rankings, we were crowned the top European business school in 2024. We were crowned the second ranked global MBA in the world by the Financial Times in both 2023 as well as 2024. And in our very first ranking for our Masters in Management program, which Manahil is in, we are actually ranked third in 2024. So it's the first time that we kind of were eligible to be ranked. So we were in our very debut rankings, it was a pretty strong showing. So I think this goes to show our commitment to excellence. And more importantly, I think it's really a testament to the strength and the resilience of our alumni, since their achievements in terms of their career progression is some of the key indicators for being highly ranked. Now, INSEAD is a global business school, like I mentioned earlier on. So we have about 3.5 different campuses spread across the world in some of the major economies around. So 1957, that's where it all started in Fontainebleau, which is about 40 minutes away by train from Paris. And since the late 70s, 80s, there was always a belief in the potential of Asia. So we had an Euro-Asia Center, which finally culminated to be a full-fledged campus here in Singapore in the year 2000. And in 2007, we've also established the Middle East campus in Abu Dhabi. And just 5 years ago, just before COVID, we also set up a hub for business and innovation in San Francisco, where it's really a bit more focused on the Bay Area in terms of the startup culture. If you're interested in VC, the San Francisco hub may be somewhere that you may want to visit to be on an overseas study mission or a trek in that sense. Here is a kind of a sneak peek, if you would, at our Europe campus in Fontainebleau. It's right by the woods. It's a very different environment, and I'll invite Mahana Hill to share a little bit more later on. It is quite spread out. It is what you would probably call or refer to as a traditional kind of university town in that sense. In Singapore, on the other hand, Singapore is really small to begin with. It's really more cosmopolitan. We are right next to the tech and innovation hub that's actually designated by the Singapore government. But it's very easy to get to the central business district, to get anywhere in Singapore within 20 to 30 minutes. Here is the Abu Dhabi campus. And finally, last but not least, it would be the hub for business innovation in San Francisco. So maybe at this point, I would like to invite Manahil to share a little bit more on the campus, the learning environment at both Fontainebleau as well as Singapore, and whether she has attended any overseas treks or field trips so far.
So, like I mentioned earlier, I have spent the past 6 months in the Fontainebleau campus, and I recently just joined the Singapore one. So, Fontainebleau, which I will be referring to as Fonty, as the insiders call it. So, in Fonty, it's like a very small town. It's mainly known for the chateau, which is like a palace. It's one of the biggest in France. So, it's either known for the palace or INSEAD, and it's a very small town. So, the advantage is that everybody knows one another, and it's a place where you can really like form like long lasting bonds because you are like closely interacting with your cohort a lot of the times. Singapore, obviously, as you know, is like a global hub in the Southeast Asian area, and this is like a larger city, so there's a lot to do here, and there's lots of like companies that you can visit, which is great. As for like the academics part of this, so this is a very like intense 10-month program. And the semesters here are further divided into periods of 2 months, and you have 3 courses per period. So basically, you're done with 3 courses in just 2 short months. So it is very intense. There's a lot to do, and it does keep you on your toes all the time. So you have to do a lot of like assignments and group work and exams, and there's just so much going on. But the good thing about INSEAD is that they have like a really strong culture of group work. So you're always in groups of like diverse teams. You will always be in play with groups where people from different nationalities. So you get to work with people from all over the world, and it's a very like a collaborative environment, which is great. And I have learned a lot from my peers as well as my professors here, who are one of like the best in the business. As for like study trips, so we have to do one mandatory study trip out of a possible of 4. Till now, we've had the San Francisco and the Abu Dhabi study trip. I did not join those because I will be joining the Singapore study trip. However, my classmates who did go, they talked about how they had meetings with different executives from different companies in Abu Dhabi and San Francisco. They had talks with them, and they even got to present their own ideas, business ideas to CEOs, which was amazing. As for treks, we have a lot of treks in different locations. So we had like a London trek for people who were interested in finance. We have an upcoming trek to Japan and South Korea, Thailand. I personally went to a Paris trek where we went to the Louis Vuitton sort of company visit, and it was great to get to know people from the company. They told us about their application process, and it was like a very nice face-to-face meeting with everyone. So you get a lot of opportunities if you are interested in any of those sort of things.
Thanks, Manahil. I'm just going to skip real quickly to the program structure since you touched briefly on it already. So indeed, the INSEAD MIM or Masters in Management program structure and experience, it's truly tri-continental, if not even more. You have the opportunity to start off the program in Fontainebleau for the first 3 periods, and before finishing off the program in Singapore for the last 2 periods. And in between each period, there are chances for you to go for an overseas track where you can actually visit a particular city where where they're known for a particular industry. For example, maybe Paris, Louis Vuitton, that would probably be the retail consumer luxury goods sector that they're famous for. But beyond that, you can also leverage on our different campuses for an overseas trip to or field trip rather to Abu Dhabi, China, Singapore, or USA, and this does change on a year-to-year basis. Yeah, so it's more than a tri-continental experience, I would say. It really is a global experience, and after you complete the 5 periods, the program, you will also be required to complete what we call the professional exposure bit, where you actually put your learning into practice, and this could be via internships or projects with actual companies. So I'm going to turn our time back to Manahil again. So if you could maybe share with your fellow LUMS community on your decision-making process for the MIM, why a master's to begin with after completing your bachelor's, and why INSEAD?
Okay, so like I previously mentioned, I spent a lot of my years outside of Pakistan, and because I do have family outside of Pakistan as well, so after LUMS, I really wanted to work abroad. But as you know, it's not the easiest to find a job in a different country outside of your home country when you don't have a degree from that particular country or region. So I had decided early on that I would be pursuing a master's degree and getting a foreign degree, so I am able to work abroad easily right after graduating. So at the time, as I'm sure a lot of you also know, that Pakistani students generally tend to go to either USA, Canada, UK. That's the countries that you normally consider. And that was the case for me as well for a long time. And I did apply to US universities and I did get accepted. However, I think the turning point for me was that last year I was fortunate enough to visit Singapore, and I attended an open house here in the Asia campus. And that's when I got to meet the faculty. We had a master class. I got to talk to the students here. And honestly, it was just like being there and getting to know more about the university here, and the fact that you have a very diverse environment here. You have students from like 30 plus nationalities in one classroom. And that is the kind of environment that really resonated with me, something that I really wanted in my master's experience. And also, this degree is not just well recognized in Europe or the Southeast Asian regions, but also in the Middle East, which I'm probably going to target. And for the MIM in particular, I would say that the MBA here requires a minimum of 2 to 3 years of work experience, which is something that I did not have. So the MIM is great as a great alternative for people who are fresh graduates or with 2 years less experience. And it is something that not a lot of universities offer, but INSEAD does, and it is one of the best universities to offer it. So at the end of the day, it was like a no-brainer for me because this was like the right fit for me.
Thanks, Manahil. Yeah, it really is about a question of fit. You need to kind of really take time to think about what's the next step for you, what's going to helpful for you to get to where you want to go to. And if a master's degree works out, it's something that you are looking at, then you should kind of consider applying. Um, after graduating from your bachelor's degree, for example. There are some who perhaps prefer to gain some years of working experience first, either locally in the country of origin or graduation before they decide to embark on an MBA. So I would say it depends on really on your aspirations in that sense. Now, here is an overview of the curriculum, the modules that you are required to complete as a MIM student. Manahil did mention that it is quite hectic. It is quite rigorous. So how did you manage? What's a typical day like for you, Manahil?
So, talking about the Fonty campus again, like a morning class day routine would essentially be like it starts off at 8:30, and 8:30 means that you need to be here before time because the doors will close. INSEAD is very particular about the attendance policy here. So yes, you have like three courses every single day. So you have 15-minute breaks in between, but you essentially have like back-to-back classes. You attend those, and then you essentially go to the cafeteria for lunch with all of your friends and classmates. And this is a great place to try different international cuisines and just, get to like unwind after a day of classes. But also, like I mentioned, because you have a lot of group work to do, after that, you will have to probably spend a few hours in the breakout rooms with your group, just like, discussing and doing work for all your next deliverables. So it's like a good mix of like both fun and work with them because, like, honestly, I've had like great experiences with my groups here, and it's just like a very fun vibe. And then after that, essentially, you go back home. You either have dinner with your friends or you make something yourself. Everything is walking distance, so it's super easy and convenient. And then at night, you just have to do some pre readings for your next session, and then you just start the day all over again.
No, I mean punctuality is super important because as you mentioned earlier on, Manahil, I think there's a focus on group work, and even within the MIM cohort, there are 30, almost 40 different nationalities in class. So they have different cultures, they have different kind of concept in terms of what's punctual or what's not. So it's really kind of like experiencing these cultural differences, I feel, that will kind of help you grow as a young professional and to help you with the next step of an international or global career, possibly. Manahil, what was the most memorable module or project that you have actually embarked on? Maybe any interesting teammates when you mentioned group work is a big kind of feature within the MIM program.
So I think the most memorable project for me was definitely in period one. As you can see here, it says practical one, leveraging data for marketing science. For us, we got to do a real life consulting project, and the company that we worked with was basically the Chateau de Fontainebleau, which is the palace in Fontainebleau. So it was a very unique experience, unlike anything that I've ever done before. And we basically had to come up with ways to strategize how to increase visitors and revenue for them. So it was a very hands-on learning experience. We got to visit the chateau multiple times. We got to meet with the people there, get to know how like essentially you even run like a palace that big a size. So it was very interesting. And at the end of the day, like when we had the final presentation, we actually got to do that in like a huge ballroom in the chateau itself, which was an experience in itself. So it's just like all of these different tiny little things that you don't get to experience elsewhere. It's like all accumulated together in one place. And it's just like every single day is something new and it's just super exciting.
In case you couldn't kind of catch up with what the chateau was like, how or imagine how it looks like. You can do a quick Google search, but it was in one of the slides earlier on as well, where there are two big winding staircases where sometimes our students will go there and take graduation photos, or they'll be there and take their pre-orientation kind of photos as well. Now, the main program I mentioned earlier on is a very diverse cohort of junior professionals, early starters, fresh graduates in class. Every intake, there's just one intake per year. Program starts in August. We are expecting usually around 200 students in class, and you have about 33 different nationalities, sometimes even up to 40, and the average age is actually 23 years old. And almost gender parity, we are working heavily on it. We would like to see more female participants within the MIM. I think that's very important to us. And INSEAD being a global business school, there isn't a overwhelming majority in terms of cultural representation. Only 15% of the MIM class would actually consider themselves as native English speakers. So you would hear a lot of different accents when you're in class. Even when you're in Fonti or in Singapore, it's like a mini United Nations in that sense.
Mm.
So it's not all work and no actual outcome in terms of the practical aspect of it. Manahil mentioned the project that she worked with the chateau, but you can expect as a INSEAD student to be able to kind of leverage on our team of career development specialists. You will have access to dedicated career coaches. We also have a global team of employer engagement specialists that actually work with the talent acquisition and HR departments of some of the largest organizations that you may hear of in terms of what their hiring needs are. So we do kind of funnel and we are pipeline for some of the largest companies in the world. Consulting being one of the very few. I'm sure if you heard about INSEAD, you'll be
Mhm.
familiar with that. The MBBs do hire quite a fair bit from our cohorts across our programs. Now, Manahil, how have you kind of leveraged or tapped into the Career Development Center so far? What was your engagement in terms of speaking with career coaches or employer engagement specialists?
So, like you mentioned, that we have like a dedicated career coach, which is great. So they can have like essentially they can track your entire career timeline and just help you along the way. And they know more about you than like having different career coaches. So that is great. They help you regarding everything, whether it's your CV, how to write cover letters, how to brand yourself, or just like general help with the application process itself. And then we also have coaches for specific sectors and industries. So essentially, if you're interested in more into finance or consulting, you will always find people who are experts in that field who are ready to help you out, which is great. Um, I probably made use of the mock interviews a lot. So we have like experts who are like ex HR interviewers of different companies who come and they help you out with like interview prep and like you get to do mock interviews with them and they give you like a very comprehensive feedback on how you can improve, which I think is has been really helpful for me. Personally, the industry that I'm focusing on, they haven't really started the application process. So I am still in the prep phase of it. Um, but maybe 4 months into this, I can definitely help you out more on the career aspect of this.
No, I mean, there are a number of different companies that actually do come onto campus to give talks, have coffee chats with our students. Really, it's not just the consulting firms, or the students do get placed in a variety of different industries, functions, and geography as well. Manahil, did you mention earlier on which industry are you targeting?
So I am targeting the FMCG industry, anything related to consumer goods. That is something that I'm really interested in, and I'll be targeting those companies.
And specifically as well, geographically, would be roles in the Middle East, right?
Yes, definitely. Maybe I could also consider like Europe or Singapore for a short term, because we do have like work authorization for all of 2025 here, which I could be interested in using. But eventually, at the end of the day, my goal is to work in the Middle East, and the best advantage of INSEAD is that you have a huge alumni network in the Middle East and elsewhere. So it's super easy and just like very easy to connect with people and talk to them and get advice.
Great, thank you. So here are some key employment statistics from the class of 2023. I will not go into too much detail there because I think you can find this online. Our students do go into a variety of different geographies in terms of the possible career employment countries in that sense. Not everyone just works in France or Singapore. It's a good mix all around. Likewise, Yes, 40% for the class of 2023 as well go into consulting strategy type of roles, but also financial services, TMT, which is tech, and corporates, MNCs also do see a number of our students entering into these companies too. Next, I've actually kind of specifically kind of put up this slide with different alumni from Pakistan, and you'd see that in between each of them, of course, there are a lot more, but in between each of them, there's a kind of a gap of 5-8 years, and these are where this is really where they are at right now. They've taken on global roles. Um, uh, since even from say 1999, Noman Hassan, he's now based in Singapore mostly, in the UK, and just fun fact as well. Um, make a guess, Manahil, who are LUMS and INSEAD alumni?
All of them?
No, the top row.
No.
I just for simplicity's sake, I put all of them on the top row. So you
Okay.
can see that they have done really well. I think it's a testament of not just LUMS, but also, of course, the postgraduate outcome from a master's program. Likewise, not just within Pakistan, they have also assumed leadership roles globally in not just business, but also in society. Our mission statement, like I mentioned earlier on, it's not just to empower our students to achieve career success, but also to kind of pay it forward to their communities or to their industry. So, for example, the Ayala Group is actually one of the largest conglomerates in the Philippines. One of the heirs to the company actually went through our MBA program, and he's the chief of sustainability in the corporation there right now. So again, many different industries and sectors being represented. I do see earlier on that there was a raised hand. Please don't worry. I'm not ignoring you, but we will have time for some Q&A later on. Just after the application and admissions criteria that I'll run through real quickly for the next couple of minutes. So broadly speaking, there are three main pillars that we are looking at in assessing one's suitability or eligibility for the Masters in Management. One, the program is rigorous, so we will need to have some reassurance of your academic performance and ability. LUMS is a top university, so I'm sure you guys all have a sterling GPA. So that's one way that we kind of ascertain your academic abilities or competency through your GPA, but there's also a GMAT or a GRE requirement. Next up, the other pillar would be all our students that come into the MIM program. They do have some international motivation, global curiosity, if not even exposure, right? They may have lived for a prolonged period, studied, gone for an overseas exchange. The reason why the international curiosity is super important to us here at INSEAD is simply because within the class, you have people from different cultures, coming together, working for in teams. So we need to be reassured that you are looking forward to learning from others in terms of the practices in different business environments. How business is being done in Vietnam, for example, could be very different from how business is being done in Germany. So this really is the INSEAD class really is the reflection of the business environment, the true global landscape. So we need our students before they come in to have this kind of open-mindedness, to be exposed to different cultures and to learn from it. And finally, we also want our students to kind of be able to leverage on one another's strengths and weaknesses. So the ability to contribute is super important, and it's one of the key pillars and assessment criteria that we look at when we are assessing or reviewing a MIM application. In terms of the application requirements and process, I will not go too much into detail because this is actually readily available online. It is an online application. You just need to create an online account, upload certain documents, take the GMAT or the GRE, and then complete your motivational essays, which really is helpful for you to kind of fine tune and think about why you want to pursue a master's at this point in time of your career. 2 letters of recommendation would be required. And once you have submitted your application, then there will be a recorded video interview that you're required to complete before the first round of review. In terms of the application deadline, we are actually in the final deadline for the August 2025 intake. The absolute last application deadline would actually be on the 29th of April 2025. There you go. This really would be the application process from end to end. It takes about 7 to 8 weeks before you hear of a final decision from the admissions committee. Now, in terms of the fees and scholarships, it is subject to change depending on which intake you are considering. If you are looking at the August 2025 intake, for example, if you're in your final year and you're looking at applying, the fees currently are at about 52,000 euros. There are scholarships available, of course, and this would be kind of granted to about 40% on average of the cohort, and the average quantum would be, or the average amount would be somewhere around 20% of the tuition fees. All right. So I'm gonna ask Manahil, who completed her application not that long ago, to share a little tips, perhaps, or if she has any advice for prospective applicants regarding the application process.
So I applied, like I mentioned again, that I applied to universities in the US. I was also considering a few in the UK. So I have like a good idea of like the different applications for different universities in different countries. And I would say that the INSEAD application is interesting and great in the sense that they don't just focus on grades, unlike some of the other universities. And they have like a more holistic approach to the application process. So they're obviously looking at grades, but they're also looking at your extracurriculars and more importantly, your international exposure. And just to see that you are able to gel in and also contribute to this class of like 200 people who have come from like, you know, different parts of the globe who have like such diverse backgrounds. And in that sense, it's like great. So again, like I would say that don't like sort of be scared that you don't have like a business background. Maybe you're not from SDSB, you don't, you know, have like the business background, but because like I have classmates who come from undergraduate degrees in psychology, in religious studies and theology, history, neuroscience. So like while we do have majority people who have like some sort of business background, but that's not always the case. And you know, it's very easy for them to gel in because everyone here is so supportive and helpful, and they will host tutorials for you. And in that sense, so I think that shouldn't be something that deters you from applying. And just at the end of the day, if you feel like maybe you're lacking in one aspect of your application, there's always a way to compensate it while being better in some other aspect. So don't again let you know this process scare you. I'm sure you guys will do great, and just like best of luck for the process.
Absolutely. I think in terms of the assessment, while there are these 3 major areas that we kind of look at, they are kind of viewed holistically. It's not that one area outweighs the other. It's equally important to us. If, for example, your GPA is not as ideal as you may like it to be, then perhaps you may want to do better in the GMAT or GRE. So it is a very balanced kind of evaluation. Not everyone comes from a traditional business, finance background. In fact, I would even venture to say a little bit more that if you have some experience, say, in your extracurriculars that are not that they're quite interesting, that's not of the usual, the norm, you may add on to the diversity of the cohort and you may be eligible for a scholarship as well. So it really depends. I mean, if it's really to kind of it's not these are not necessary barriers to entry. I think Amna has a similar question on the minimum admissions requirement. So yes, we will definitely require you to have a degree, for example, but otherwise, there are other areas where we can kind of that we will look into as well. So you just need a degree for sure. You do not need years of working experience, but you will need a GMAT or a GRE score as part of the application process. Um, Maneha, how long do you take to prepare for the GMAT or GRE?
So I took like a summer break, maybe like a month and a half or 2 months, just to prepare for the GMAT. And that was essential for me as well because I took the GMAT Focus Edition, which is a newer edition, and there weren't a lot of resources available for that. So I kind of had to, prepare in a different way. But I'm sure now, like a year has passed, so you might have better resources available. And yeah, it's like, not that hard. I'm sure a lot of you have taken the SATs before, so you do have some sort of experience giving those kind of exams. So yeah, I think that should be helpful.
Would you also say that in terms of GMAT prep, right? It's best to kind of do it early because once you leave, say, the environment of being in doing exams, right? As you start working, then it takes a little bit more time. So all of you guys here with us right now, maybe you can start preparing for your GMAT while you're still fresh and still used to the rigor of test taking. Was that something that you think you experienced, Manahil?
No, definitely. I think the earlier the better, because even when I was working on my like GMAT during the summer break, I was like, maybe if I was doing this while I was like, actually studying, it would have been better because I was like in the flow. If you give a break to studying, it obviously, you lose the momentum. So definitely, like, I feel like you guys have like a good time right now to start preparing for it, or like, just book exams. And I only gave it once, but I know like a few people who maybe give it multiple times. So maybe try it out, test it out, how it goes for you. And if you want to improve, then it's like a better way to see and benchmark yourself, and then you can improve later on.
And if you're taking the GMAT, the validity period is for 5 years. So depending on, where you're looking at, even at an MBA at a later stage, that's still a possibility to use your GMAT scores to apply for any program. Aj Lal has a question on the maximum years of working experience in the MIM, or someone with 2 years of experience, whether they can apply. I would say it really depends on what kind of work experience that you have. Broadly speaking, we do keep it at a cap of 2 years, simply because beyond 2 years, you may be more suitable for an MBA. Do bear in mind that the master's program, be it an MBA or the MIM, leverages heavily on peer-to-peer learning as well. So it does make sense, therefore, to be in a cohort or in class with people of a similar experience or level of experience as yourself. Um, Anam has a question on the skill sets that are acquired during the MIM. Manahil, would you be able to comment a little bit on that? Any soft skills, maybe working with your classmates beyond the hard technical skills that you can share a little bit more?
So definitely because this is like a business degree, and while we are completely open to people from different backgrounds, sometimes you would feel that people who have a business background have a slight edge, because they have done, like the basics of this before. um but also I think like just soft skills of like knowing how to interact with people from different nationalities and cultures, that is super important. Like I just like I have like a more international background than most people from Pakistan, but it's not super like difficult. I know other people who have come from Pakistan as well, but it's just like you need to be more open minded and open to new experiences, even if you don't have had the experiences before. But just know that your classmates are going to be super helpful and super open to getting to know more about you and your own culture. And everybody just shares their own cultures with everyone. So it's like going to be super fun for you, but just be more open minded to that. And I think at the end of the day, you need to also know like how to sort of like give presentations, and I'm pretty sure LUMS prepares you for all of that, so that's not a big issue for most of you. So I think yeah, that should essentially what I would say are one of the few more important things.
Okay. So there are a couple of more questions on the chat, and I'll get to them in a bit. But I'm conscious of the time because Manahil is taking time away from her classes right now to actually attend this. So if you have any burning questions, please try to kind of pop it into the chat as quickly as you can. We have a couple of minutes more, I believe. So Irtaza has a question on the average GPA required out of 4 or out of 5. Actually, that doesn't matter, I would say. There is no conversion in that sense. There really also isn't an average or minimum, I would say. It does differ from individual to individual. So I would say kind of put away all that you've read if on the GMAT forums if you're assessing that on a regular basis. While we definitely want to make sure that your academic abilities are up to standard, we also do realize to a certain extent sometimes your undergraduate degree may not be a major that you're totally interested in, and you're taking the Masters in Management to make a pivot to the more business side of things. So we understand if your GPA is not your ideal. Again, I would say if this is the case, then work harder in your GMAT or the GRE. So in terms of the GMAT, we are looking at targeting 66 percentile for the quantitative as well as the data insights portion, and the 60th percentile and above for the verbal section. For the GRE, try to target, if you have not already taken the GRE, percentiles above the 80th. So this would be your range, if that's something that you are that I think that's something that's a little bit more useful for our LUMS attendees this afternoon. Yeah. You see the GPA sometimes it's already cast in stone. If you're in your final term, it's very hard to kind of compensate and make up. So try and do better in your GMAT, GRE. Try and if you're looking at applying, try to put forth more compelling essays, for example, and I think you'll be fine. Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Sheza?
Yes, I'm here. I'm not. I haven't disappeared. I was waiting for you guys to end the questions. Okay. Do you guys want to take the questions that we have in the chat, or should I just, because I think you have covered everything, especially
Mm.
the last one.
In terms of the scholarship criteria,
Yeah,
there
I know. And
are.
also there was a question about, I don't know if you've dealt with the Q&A section question. Somebody was asking about the minimum requirements. But I think that's the so far the session has covered everything. We have a new question as well. Do you want to take that, or should I say that out loud?
Are there PR or work
Work
authorization
authorization
opportunities
opportunities after
after
masters.
masters?
Okay, that's a
So,
hot topic too for students coming from abroad.
so I think Manahil, correct me if I'm wrong. You did mention that there is some opportunities as well, but essentially the companies that are looking at hiring our students, they will make very clearly whether they are going to be sponsoring a visa or not, depending on the region where the position has opened at. Correct? Yep.
Yes, and also just to mention that because we end our program in Singapore, we do have all of like 2025 where we can work in Singapore, and we can also extend this to Europe on a case by case basis, I think.
Mhm. So how to get scholarships? What's the scholarship criteria? Um, in terms of the scholarships, there are two main baskets. Those scholarships where we would require you to kind of apply for the scholarship, and those that are awarded based on the kind of overall profile that you bring into class, the kind of diversity, for example, and the strength of the application. So it's merit based as well as somewhat need based in that sense. And I would say you will need to actually be shortlisted till the point of attending an alumni interview before you can start considering to apply for scholarships. Hill, maybe I'll leave the last word to you since you're LUMS alumni, of course. Any final tips for those who are with us this afternoon?
I think again, I would like to mention that I hope that a lot of you have learned more about INSEAD through this webinar. And you obviously you know yourself, but just know that choose a university, whether it's INSEAD or any other, but which where you feel like it's a good fit for you, because that really enhances your master's experience and even after that for your work. So like I said, how I got to know more about INSEAD and I really made my decision based on that. You guys, I hope this webinar was helpful and also do your own research. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn or you can even email me on my LUMS email address. If you have any more questions after this, I would be happy to help if I ever get the chance from my busy schedule, but I will make sure to help my LUMS students. So definitely do reach out to me if you have any more questions regarding more of like the student life here or just how to apply or anything of that sort. I would definitely be happy to help.
And I'll just add one last thing, and better yet, be like Manahil. Come for a visit, whether Fontainebleau or Fonty or in Singapore. Come for a visit. Shazad, over to you.
I'm sorry, I couldn't catch you. Could you
Shazad,
repeat what you said?
over to you. I think
Oh,
that's
you
pretty
said
much
over
all
to
the
you.
questions.
I was like, is he asking me something? I'm sorry, the internet is so patchy today here. That's why I'm taking this meeting from home as well. But thank you so much, Danny. Thank you so much, Minahil, for conducting this session. I know this is a bit of an odd time for all three of us with, Ramzan going here. Okay, we have questions coming in. Do you guys want to take that last question or should I just go on towards concluding the session? Somebody's asking if they can choose Abu Dhabi as their choice of program. I think you meant your choice of location, not the
So
program.
yeah, in terms of the program structure, 3 periods has to start in Fontainebleau, the first 3 periods, and then you'd end off in Singapore. You can use the Abu Dhabi campus, but mostly for overseas tracks, kind of understanding the MENA, Middle East kind of
Mhm.
environment and industry and economy better in that sense.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much, guys. That's it for today. Please, uh, for any more questions, I will be rolling out a form like in a minute. I'm going to send that in the chat. So if you guys could please fill out the feedback form and give us your feedback on this session so that, we can make these more impactful for all of you in the future. And once you obviously do that, I'll share LinkedIn profiles and whatever necessary details are required. For example, somebody was asking about the application URL, so I'll share all of that as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and I'm gonna just share that. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Manahil. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
I'm gonna stop
everyone.
the
Have a
recording
good
or we'll
day.
end the chat. Take care.
Bye.
Allah Hafiz. Goodbye.